Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. At 7 o'clock, I'm live from Tel Aviv in Israel. I'm of all places, and in the last 2 weeks, I've been, goodness knows where, several cities, and I've lost track of where I am. This sounded like a great idea at the time, and goodness knows what's going to happen. I have 5 guests and a list of like 5 to 10 more who wanted to join on part 2 of this, so we'll see how this goes. But we are tackling what I think is one of the true problems. I'm a girl dad. I've got a daughter who's 7 years old, Isabel, who you'll see in much of my social media posts, and I'm keen, if not desperate, for her to find a way into tech, and I want to try and set a pave the way for how we do that. So I think firstly, tackling the elephant in the room and talking about what works, what doesn't work, and how we try and solve those problems is about the best place we can be. I would introduce all my guests by name, but it would take me far too long. So let's bring them all on and get on with the conversation. Thank you all for joining. We'll see how this works. Appreciate everyone's time. I'm going to start with a quick introduction. I've got 3 things that I want. Your name, then I want to know, and it's a yes or no question. Are men the problem in cyber right now? Is that the reason that it's a difficult challenge for women? And question 3, why is there a problem? 1 sentence though. We can't go in paragraphs long. So really quick. Josephine, you're next to me, so I'll go for you first, and then after you're finished, I'll send it around the room.
Thanks, Jake. I'm Josephine. I'm from Codat. What was the first question? Is there a problem?
Yes.
No, I think that they're everyone's problem. So no, you can have a caveat, which includes men. Men are everyone.
Okay.
And what was the second question?
What is the problem?
What is the problem? The patriarchy.
So men are the problem, but the problem is the patriarchy. Okay, fine. Great, we'll move it on. Megan Epperson, introduce yourself, your yes or no question, and what you think the problem is.
Hi, I'm Megan. Yes. Well, first, no. Are men the problem? No. What is the problem? I think it's a lot of skilled leadership growing up. Like there's not a lot of STEM, or females aren't introduced to a lot of STEM when they're growing up. It's introduced much later in life. So I think that's the problem. It's just the typical toys that children are given, things like that.
Okay, fine. We're coming back to that one. That's the first question I've got. It's an interesting one. Amy, introduce yourself. Same questions to you.
Hi, I'm Amy. They're not the problem, but they are part of the problem.
Okay.
I think we all are. I think the aspect that holds us back is assumption. There's assumption made of what roles people hold in a room, who the important people are, and it does tend to lend itself towards the males in the room.
Interesting. I'm going to come back to that one. I've got a question around that as well that I always notice in executive offsites. Mandy.
Hi all, Mandy, Andress, CISO at Elastic. Similar to everyone else, I think men are a part of the problem, not the full scope of the problem. And solution, I think it's visible opportunities. I think we lack that, and how do we help make it at least an option for folks to get into the space?
Okay, I like that. I'm coming back to that too. Megan, last one.
Hi, I'm Megan. I am the founder and CEO of VioletX. Do I think men are the problem? Probably not the problem of cybersecurity unless they're bad actors. A lot of them are men.
Okay.
I would say the problem with cybersecurity, if we're talking about women working in the field, would be an understanding of what it is. So a lot of people may not know the variety of jobs that exist in cybersecurity, both technical, non-technical, things like education, and even security engineering. I see a lot of cool women in security engineering. So I think just an understanding of all the ways to contribute and like the different types of companies.
Okay, so I think that ties slightly to Mandy's about this visibility of like pathways and opportunities. Josephine, I can't tackle the patriarchy full stop, so we might just skip that one for now. And then Megan, Amy, I think there's some valid points in that. For anyone else who's on the chat, feel free to chime in with any questions and thoughts. There's also a link to sponsoring scholarships for women to attend security conferences. So click through that. I think that's a really good and meaningful way to actually make a statement with more than just words. Megan, I want to start with yours because I think that's a really interesting point. So I am trying desperately to push my 7-year-old little girl into maths and into STEM-based subjects. But no matter how many opportunities I give her, she's naturally orientated towards crafts and creativity and other things like that. So how do we fix that? That's a very open question.
That's a very challenging question because it's not just you as a parent, it's society as a whole. So I read a lot of psychology books, and as you know, I'm very vocal about my son being neurodiverse. So I'm really pay attention to parenting styles, what happens at school, other parents that your friends go and play with, what toys they're given, opportunities. And I just see there's a huge disconnect at a very, very young age about, oh no, this is a doll, it goes to her. Or, hey, how would you like this truck? It goes to him. And so I think that's almost a fundamental issue, and it's rooted in everything. We're doing a lot to change it in society, which is amazing, and I love that, but it's still, a lot of that traditional norms is still there.
Do you think that's conscious or subconscious as a parent? If I go back, I think, did I offer her both? Yes. When she chose the doll, did I fight and say, why don't you want the car? Probably not. And then I think, like, is that conscious, subconscious? Is that error we need to like actively try and correct? What do you think?
So that's the challenging part, and that's what I find it so fascinating. Keep reading books about it, because I don't think anyone knows right now what wires someone to go towards one thing or another. Like me today, we have a very non-traditional household. My husband is amazing. He's a stay-at-home dad, and I work, so it's a little bit of that non-traditional. So he's around the kids more often. So my kids get a lot more exposure to a male role model in their lives. A lot of females are doing it all. They're working full time and they're taking care of the kids and managing the house and everything. And that, you know, it's difficult. So I guess I just have a different kind of perspective.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to pivot. Josephine, you've got a little one, so I'm going to probably the youngest child, I think, in this room potentially. So let me ask two questions off the back of what Megan said to you. I think firstly is, do you actively try and expose your daughter to, I suppose, both gender-based toys, if toys are gender-based? And then secondly, do you think that being a mom, and I know you balance kind of motherhood with working, like having a day at home that you spend with your daughter, like, do you find that that probably disadvantages you in a way that it wouldn't do if you were a man?
Love that. Yeah, I have a daughter. She's 18 months old. Her name's Emily, and I think her and my husband are watching from the other room of the house. So yes, I have a really conscious view on like giving her toys, and I think that like someone spoke about like visible opportunities, but like visible equal opportunities as well. So like equal opportunities of what toys that we're giving her, and I think if I had a son, I would give them the same toys. And that's kind of always my conscious thoughts are, would I say this to her, would I give this toy to her, would I probably not dress her in this because I really love pink and I just love that I get to dress her in pink, but other than that, like, do I get to, would I give her the same thing if she were a boy? And I try and test myself on that all of the time. And I think that that's something that could translate into the workplace as well. So if you're a man and you're walking into a meeting room and you'll be like, oh, Josephine, you're going to take the minutes for this meeting, you should challenge yourself and you should be like, okay, why am I asking Josephine that? Is it because she's a woman and I think of her as a typical secretarial role? Possibly. And maybe I should think again and be like, oh, actually, no, Joey, like, you're going to take the minutes instead. Obviously that's a really like high level example, and I've forgotten the question that you actually asked me, so I hope that answers.
No, that you've answered the first one. The second part was you obviously have like a hybrid work balance to try and spend time with your daughter, which I fully think that we should try and spend time with our children. So like, do you think that then disadvantages you?
In my particular business, no, but I think that it does when I think about the opportunities again. So if I wanted to move on from Codat at some point, I would personally feel limited because of the flexibility that I know that I'm given at my current company. So therefore my options when I look outwards therefore seem more limited. But I hope as we kind of move forwards that wouldn't just be a woman's issue. That wouldn't be just a mother's problem. Flexibility should be granted to everyone. And it's such an incredible benefit and such a great privilege that actually you would want everyone. Like, I know Simon, like the InfoSec Live leader, like he has 6 children. Like, what a privilege it would be to spend time with all of them as well, and more time. And I think that that's not just a woman's issue, but obviously because the mental load, the load of thinking about your kids' shoe size and whether they're outgrowing their shoes and their clothes and all of those kind of things that muddle up your brain even further. That's probably the biggest hindrance that being a working mum is the addition of the mental load on top of the load of work, and then the additional thing of being in your women's community and you're helping out all the other communities because that's what you typically do as a member of a community that's in an underrepresented group?
I can only imagine. I said because of my travel schedule predominantly before anything else, my wife's at home with the children. And I always think that when she goes away once or twice a year and leaves me, when I'm balancing like actually doing my full-time job plus having the kids, I like after a week, I'm like completely spent. And I'm like thinking, this is like normal life for so many people that I work with. Like, I don't know how people manage.
Cook dinner.
Yeah, the mental and emotional stress between the two, like, is like I can't handle that. I think that people, I think inherently, whether there is a gender difference in our psychology or not, it's heavily debated. But biologically, I think women are better wired to multitask, whether it's an assumption or not. I think I've just realized that's true. I want to move to Amy, to your point. So it's an interesting one because I've just sat in an exec offsite for the last 3 days. There was 2 women in the room. What roles do you think they had?
Probably the highest ones, actually. But how do you know that? Like, it's a really good aspect of asking because I have no idea. I don't know what their roles are. And if you go into a room and you assume what they are, you will just lead it that way. So as Josephine said, like, you'll ask her to take the minutes because you assume that they're there. You'll ask them where the best coffee is. You'll ask them where the bathrooms are. There are all these things that will be asked of certain people in a room when you make that assumption that you come into. I've been in meetings where we've been talking to salespeople. They don't make any eye contact with me. They always talk to somebody else who they think is the more important. Then we get to the end and I'm like, actually, I'm the one that gets to make the decisions. And because you spent 30 minutes talking to my counterpart, we're not going to go with you. And it's very often and common assumption. That bias, whatever it is, as you just said, I think women are better at that whole mental load multitasking aspect is because we've had to do it. It's not necessarily because we're good at it. It's just we have to. If we don't pick that up, and this is also what you see in other roles within the organization, is that we will see a problem. And if no one else picks it up, we'll pick it up. We will acquire people, processes, issues, and we will fix those. And the irony of it is when we fix them, people then look for somebody else to grow and expand, and they don't look at us, even though we're the ones that fix things in the first place.
So let's go back.
I did want to come back to something you said, Jake, and said, how do I fix the arty craft aspect of my daughter? You don't. That's actually one of the best things for somebody in cybersecurity. That artistic aspect, that way to look at something in a different viewpoint, the way to bring different perspectives into the game is what makes information security people fantastic. It also makes great quality people. It makes great service desk people. It makes great amazing compliance people, oddly enough, and I know amazing compliance doesn't really go together, but that's what actually makes the better people in these roles because they're exploratory and they want to go around what they think is the right path because they want to explore it.
I love it. I also love being challenged. I like people arguing with me, so it's good. The question I've got, though, is, so I agree with everything you said, but you still can't avoid the fact that almost, if not every executive table, is an underrepresented group, right? Women are an underrepresented group. I've never been in an exec room where it was more than 25% of the exec table, right? Why? And I agree with you, there's skills there which by necessity or by competency are there. So why is that true then at an executive level?
Can I ask a question?
You can, yes, sure. Why not? Ask to Amy.
At all the rooms that you've been in, the CEO, the ultimate decision maker, have they been a man?
In all but one, yes.
Okay, and in the all but one, was the one, did you have more women in that?
No, she was actually the only woman in that room. Which is ironic, right? There are companies where you'll find that if there's a female CEO in place, then there's a large representation of women in the executive team. But even that, I've only seen in rare instances. I think Vantage, I don't know off the top of my head, where there's more women in the executive team than there are men, and that's based on a very strong female leadership presence. But I'm going to go back to my question then to Amy.
And probably competency.
Well, this goes back to what Amy was saying, 100%, because what she was saying is that females typically expand their roles because they see issues. They unconsciously expand their roles within the company, and they expand them so much that now they can't get promoted because they're the only people who can do the work. They inadvertently keep themselves from being promoted to those higher level positions. So
you're effectively saying that competency and ability to take on more work can be your blocker to progression?
Yeah, it absolutely can. 100%. Yes.
It depends who's promoting you and what they value. If they're valuing ego and typically traits that are dominated not by women, then chances are you'll be more likely.
Oh, you've sent me down the path that I knew we were going at some point. Let's have that conversation, right? Do we think that men dominate in leadership roles because of personality.
Yeah.
You went for egos, you went for personality traits, you went for like ego, brashness, whatever you want to call it, right? Is that the reason? Is that because often there's a male CEO and that's what they promote on? It's an open question. Whoever speaks first can speak.
I think it's one of the situations, building on what Megan said, in that, yes, women take on and solve a lot of problems, but they're also not the ones that are always talking about themselves. They'll talk more about the team. And it's that, how do you be visible and do well in your role? And I think that's where we struggle a lot in just making ourselves visible, making ourselves known. It's it's all about the team success. Uh, but as an individual, we might fall behind the scenes or be perceived to be behind the scenes more. And I don't see that as much with other men in some roles. And that's that visibility, or at least that perception that I'm going to go fight. If they see it, great. If they don't see it, they think it doesn't happen. And that's, I think, part of the difference that we're seeing.
But are we still there? Man, do you work for a data company, right? We live in an age of data and AI. Are we still there when the fact that your contribution, your effort, and whether you talk about the team or self-promote, are we still there that really like that self-sales is more important than what the underlying data says?
I still see it, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I do.
it still is. I think there's also a very strong cultural aspect. Jake, you know this, you're British. If you took yourself up in an organization to great heights, we just chop you down. It's the tall poppy syndrome of Australia. We do the same thing. America is very different and it is very vocal. And I've had a lot of challenges in my time living in the US where people say, you got to promote yourself more. And I'm like, it's not what I do. If my work isn't good enough, I don't want to tell everyone how great I am. Like, you shouldn't have to know that. I'm in this position because I'm good at my job. I shouldn't have to keep repeating to tell you that I'm good at my job. But we do see a lot of that aspect and that type of peacock mentality of puffing up that seems to get people to succeed. That typically is a female versus male trait that we have. We want people to view and witness what we do as a good thing, and other people will want to talk themselves up, as opposed to the actions speaking louder than words is not entirely what happens in this circumstance.
That's interesting. Interesting. I want to build on that. Megan, you hire lots of people. So down the bottom right, Megan. Two Megans. I need to not have people with the same name. When we hire people in HR, right, we're very specific about like assessing what we need, defining the criteria, testing against the criteria. It is data driven, right? We don't. In the end, you're going to test people's actual competencies. If someone says they need to be intelligent, they can do it. You don't just inherently trust that. At least I hope we don't. So why does that not happen as we progress? It seems like when people enter a business, we properly assess their capabilities and what they actually do, and we give them a role based on that. But when we talk about promotion, you've all basically said that it's actually about your capability to talk yourself about what you actually do. So why is that a failing on HR practices? Is that a failing on leadership? Like, there's clearly a problem here between we assess at point of entry, we don't assess at point of progression.
Are you asking Megan F?
No, I'm asking you. Yes.
Okay. I didn't want to speak over you, Megan. So how my business runs is definitely one of our core values is substance over style. So as a leader, I'm very attuned to delivery. We do cybersecurity execution, and that does make it easy for me to quantify, hey, this is what's getting done. This is how customers are responding to it. This person's selling. And I try to anchor my business and things that I do into execution, even in myself. And I think that this has helped me to look at talent as gender neutral and neutral in other ways. I think a lot of people in their career, there's a lot of different reasons people go to work. Some people want to provide for their family. Some people, it's their passion or their hobby. But I think the root of this topic is, people want a stage to be able to excel, whether financially or to show their talents. And what I try to do to create neutrality is to focus on execution. I think within companies that can be measured in different ways, and where people get frustrated might be where bias comes in, where it is not a neutral evaluation of contribution, and where people are not able to achieve their goals, even if they are executing. I think Megan E made a comment like women might execute and be out executing others, and that is not received with promotion, but rather appreciation. And so I think that neutrally creating a stage for execution where you do have better ways to look at, what are people contributing? How are they, at the end of the day, meeting the needs of customers? That to me is the ideal state. The impact you're making on the business and the customers, that is ideally where you can get to, or how you're leading and mentoring the team and quantifying that. That's ideally where we can get to. But the reality is that businesses don't have those levers. And it sounds like, even from this panel, that is not regularly or consistent across businesses. So that would be, I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's how I address it, is trying to bring it into.
No, it makes sense. So it's almost like a lack of ability and availability of data, that people don't act on it, so they make assumptions based on what they see rather than what they know. Megan E, I would describe you as outspoken, which I think is a fair assessment. So to Rhonda's point, she says that many women in cyber stepping into the spotlight feels like a risk. Why? Like, everyone in this room, I think, is a strong character. So why does it feel like a risk, and why don't we take those risks more often?
So I'm starting to mentor some young females coming into the cyber area, and I want to hit on the differences between mentorship and sponsorship, because those are very different things, and a lot of people don't understand those differences. But back to your first question is, I think it's because they feel like they don't have the skill set to speak soundly in a room full of male counterparts. I don't know what keeps people back, or females back, from being more vocal, because I've never had that issue. But it's probably because I was in the military for a long time. But that's why I'm trying to mentor some of these kids, is to coming in and say, hey, no, you're really great. You're on point. You're saying exactly what you need to say. Let's just kind of cleanse it up. Make your thoughts come through very clear and fluid. Because I see a lot of females, when they get up and public speak, I feel like they put doubt in themselves subconsciously. And that's something I'm trying to help mentor and work through with some. But I don't know the underlying aspects of it. I'm really interested in it though, Jay, because I read a lot of psychology, and I'm still trying to understand it to better help my daughters when they get into the professional world as well.
Can you go into mentorship versus sponsorship? I'm curious.
Yeah. So mentorship is kind of what I'm doing with different people, through LinkedIn. They get to know me. It's basically just providing guidance, providing, feedback in different areas. I will tell you, one of my greatest mentors, I'm going to call him out. It's Eric Staffen and Doug Weldon, one of my biggest mentors. And then when I worked with them at S&P a couple of years, they were also huge sponsors of me, sponsorship. That's when they're in the room talking you up, saying, yes, Megan can handle this project, or, hey, this is who you need to speak to help you get this solved. It's the people who talk really, really great about you when no one's looking. That's the sponsorship that I think a lot of females need in cybersecurity.
So that's like advocacy more than just like, here's a little bit of help here and there. Yeah, I think that's a valid point. I'm going to stay with you because Rhonda commented back on the first comment and said it's not a lack of skill, but conditioning to stay quiet, blending our way to invited. I mean, that's spicy. Is that true? And if so, where is that conditioning? Are we talking about from like birth at home? Are we talking about when we enter the corporate world? Like,
that's a very, very valid
point. It's a societal role, Jake. It's built into us. It's the stay quiet. It's the aspect of being well behaved. It's staying out of the dirt while other people are encouraged to play in it. I think it's a lot of just that gender role. Going back to your conversation with Josephine earlier about, is this are toys gendered? There's a classic comment on something on Amazon where the thing is, are your kids using their genitals with this? Then it's not. It's fine. It's for everybody. And I think I can feel Rhonda's statement is that I have been in that position, even in the positions that I've been in. It's still an aspect of allowing for space for me to take that up, for being denied the chance to talk in those instances in the past. So it will be reflective, for lack of a better word, trauma experience of having things shut down or voicing your opinion, but then no one taking it into consideration, and then somebody else saying it louder and maybe with a more bravado voice, which gets it to that next stage. We've all been in positions probably where we've said the same thing to somebody. They don't want to listen to you. You divert it off to somebody else. They say exactly the same thing, and that's okay. But when you said it, it wasn't. In a support role, in any instance at all, coming from somebody else. And when I say that, I'm going to be very obvious. Coming from the white male in the room, that's when it gets listened to. So I've asked people who work for me to go into a meeting and say exactly the same thing that I would say, but I knew because of the relationship, because of the people involved, that it would be accepted from them and not from me. So that's a consistent aspect that I've seen in my career in IT.
That's interesting. I'm going to come back to that, but I'm going to answer the question that Barbara asked first. Mandy, you are quite a relevant CISO, I guess. You're quite prevalent in a lot of places. So I think it's a good question for you. So what are the soft skills that she asked that you recommend for women to develop that want to enter into executive roles?
I'll go back to something that Rhonda said earlier, and it's kind of owning your space. It's something that I've had to work on quite a bit through the course of my career. And that feeling of, yes, I belong in the room, feel like I deserve to be in the room. And it's more this not self-serving, but it's more self-confidence in not relying on others to tell me that I could be there or I should be there. It's just me. Yes, I should be here. I can be here. I am here. And that's a critical skill that took me a number of years to develop. And it's a combination of just doing it, being comfortable failing, being okay that sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it doesn't, and just continuing to try things out and see what works for you. And it's, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a soft skill. It's, I think, for women often to be successful today, certainly in a corporate environment, it's, truly owning your space and being comfortable in that space that you're in. And if you're not comfortable in that space, find spaces that you are comfortable. I think that's something as well that we often don't do enough of. We'll stay somewhere where we may not be set up for success. And being mindful about that is helpful as well.
That's
I have a
interesting.
good answer too for this, Jake. I would say I've been in tech since the beginning of my career. So I worked in tech startups. I worked at IBM, which is a really challenging technical and cultural environment, very competitive, and have started my own business. The soft skills, I love that it was Barbara asked about them, because I do believe the soft skills that started at the beginning of my career have really shaped the path, and that was sales. So my first job was a pick up the phone and be hung up on dial $4 sales job. And even if you're not going to go into sales or stay in sales, doing that and as young as you can is such a helpful base, because I only remember being 19 or 20 years old when I got my first full-time job, being hung up on. And at that point in my life, in college, it's such a light and fun environment. You don't really take yourself that seriously. It's always offensive to be hung up on or hear, never call me again. I don't want to hear from your company. Why are you contacting me? Truly, like the worst way that someone receives you. You're not wanted, go away. But when you have a job where you have to make 20 or 40 of these calls, I have so many memories of someone hanging up on me and then me going, hey, I think we got disconnected, and calling back. And especially at a young age, I had it in me because my friends were kind of silly. I remember getting a little pumped, and I'd tell my friends, hey, someone, you wouldn't believe what they said to me, and you wouldn't believe what I said. I called them back and I said, hey, we got disconnected. Or I'd leave them a voicemail and I'd say, you told me to call at 3. It's 3. Where are you? Just kind of the playfulness of being rejected. And I think that that's created a base for me for rejection through my career, because it's all I've ever known professionally is to be rejected. It also helped me to separate people's feedback of me from me. So something I learned very young by doing that was that people might be rejecting my company, not me. They might be rejecting our offering, not me. They might be rejecting what I said, and my sales pitch wasn't good, and not me. So that also created this process in my head where whether it's a sales call or a meeting, I typically reflect after, what did I do well? How was that motion that I tried? It put that workflow into my mind of what would I do better? Did I achieve my objective? How did I present myself? How was I nailing my goal? And that came from that base of really
Yeah, I kind of think everyone should be a BDR at some point, because there's a resiliency lesson there, which I think is impossible to teach anywhere else. Josephine, I want to ask you a question, because Mandy and Megan F both talked to me about visibility of pathways. You obviously didn't start in cybersecurity, and in fact, several people in this room didn't start in cybersecurity. So you obviously didn't have visibilities of the career that you're now in. You obviously didn't know it existed, or else you might have started it to begin with. So there's no question that's a problem. I don't have that question. Like, how do we try and improve that? Like, how do we try and give more visibility into tech, into cyber, into more technical STEM-based careers for women, if there isn't visibility right now?
Great question. I think that it's like that is a small part of the issue, and it's about kind of hiring those junior roles and making sure that what you're hiring for and the skills that you're looking for are actually skills that are pretty transferable. We've actually got a job open at the moment, and the things I'm looking for are like great project management, ability to juggle multiple things. Like the security bits can be taught at a junior role, but the soft skills, the will, the desire, the enthusiasm, those things can't really be taught, and that's what we're hiring for. And I think that especially for those more junior roles where you don't need those technical skills, like that is such a great opportunity to be able to lower that barrier and be like, we're looking for these skills, we're looking for these soft skills, we're not looking for these technical skills.
But you lower the barrier to entry, which I agree with, and you make it softer. But I still know, having opened similar recs, that 70 to 80% of my applicants will be male. Why? Like, how do we change that?
Yeah, I haven't really. So the hiring process that we're particularly following, like I don't know their genders. I hear you. I think that it's systemic. By the way, that's what I think the patriarchy is a systemic evidence of the system that's created to kind of hinder women and excel men. And I think that's why cyber people are paid so much money as well. It's such a technically valued skill, is because it's one that's typically falls into more of a male pathway. So it starts way back at the beginning. It starts in school, like what you're doing with your daughter, and I'm sure that we all are with young people that we know, is like encouraging them all to have equal opportunities and to follow their passions wherever they may lie, but then to talk to them about how they can utilize that in a corporate sense, in a commercial way, and then trying to find paths for them to be like, oh, okay, do you know that these skills that you really, really love would be like the legal and compliance skills? Like, do you know that this is transferable to you to become an information security director? Like, do you know that this is a pathway available to you? And if you're interested, like, let's talk more about it, and let's take these steps. You should do these courses or get these qualifications, and that is a kind of shorter way in than at me that was just a lot of luck.
So it's kind of a combination of parental guidance, mentorship, and almost to a degree, a little bit of luck, if I'm honest. Megan E, I want to ask you a question I think is quite directed. So I think part of the problem is the whole way that tech exists. Tech is generally a well-paid profession. And if you look in education, generally teachers of technology subjects, IT, whatever it might be called, are generally paid less than entry-level analysts are in the field. So that means that exposure to particularly high-tech subjects at school is going to be at a lower quality than most people actually in the field. So unless you get people who ethically want to be in schools teaching, you have a problem actually trying to promote this in any kids. This isn't just girls, but kids full stop. Like, A, do you agree? And B, if you do, like, what's the path out of that? Because we're not going to suddenly double teacher salaries tomorrow.
I think teachers should get all the money. I mean, dealing with that many kids all the time, I think we should just give them whatever they want. Like, to be honest, like, I know
I would agree as a teacher.
So I think it does start a little bit at home and in the schools, like you were saying, but look at it this way, from this perspective. So AI, it's big, it's evolving. Yes, we all have, insight into it. We're all using it. But how many of your kids are using it? How many of your kids are using it responsibly? Have they been taught the parameters of what they should and shouldn't use it for around AI ethical, laws, regulations, and boundaries that are all forming? I can say that my son does. He loves it. He gets on ChatGPT and creates, images in there and just has fun with it. I have not been able to successfully get my daughter engaged in it, though. And I can't quite understand why. I even try to create fun games on it and to get her more engaged. But I think she's scared of using it because she's in middle school now, and teachers are like, you can't use AI because then you're cheating. So now she has a stigma in her mind that if I use AI, I'm cheating. So I think it all starts with, education. Like, I would love to see AI being taught in schools. It's not. And I think that's going to hinder females as they get older too, not having that fundamental understanding of the new technologies that are emerging.
Why would that hinder females but not men?
You know what? I'm saying that in a biased way because my son loves it. There may be some guys or some sons out there who absolutely hate it. But from my perspective, comparing my daughter and my son together, yeah, my son's already on it. He's learning kind of Python through it, learning how to do some minor coding and loving it. But I cannot get my daughter engaged in it for some reason.
Interesting. Amy, I'm going to you because Rhonda just popped another comment and Rhonda's driving some great conversation. We can be more mindful of how we talk about STEM, swapping words like intimidating for creative, challenging, and meaningful so girls see it as something to explore, not fear. Do you think that's it? Is it a marketing problem rather than anything else?
Oh, Rhonda caught on the aspect of what I said earlier, where you said that, you know, how do I fix my daughter from being creative? And I'm like, that's actually the best way to go about it, where it's not intimidating. It's not all about math. I mean, sure, there's some in there, but you don't have to be a math wizard to be in cybersecurity. You don't have to be a coder. It comes back to that conversation I said earlier, where it was like, there are so many roles within cybersecurity that don't require certain elements of skill sets, but do require completely different things that make for fantastic cybersecurity people. And it's the ability to take those elements and piece them together to actually present a really good program, a good pathway, you know, how you're going to scale, what you're going to work within. So I do agree again with Rhonda, you should get her on next time, I think.
It's a good shout.
And
Rhonda,
one of the other, because one of the other things that Rhonda said earlier, and I'm going to kind of pivot around, is that we wait to be invited to the conversation. And you were saying, how do we get more women applying for cybersecurity roles? I think that's actually another answer for you, Jake, is we need to stop waiting for women to come to our jobs. We need to go and find them, which will be in different places, in different communities. It'll be in different areas. We want to look for the potential in people to become cybersecurity people, as Josephine said, not necessarily knowing those tech skills yet, but seeing that ability. One of my greatest hires was for a administrative tooling role, and I hired somebody that had never administrated a tool in her life before. And she was one of the most phenomenal people that I've ever hired into a technical role, who did not have any of the experience beforehand, but she had the people skills and the ability to see what the problems were and translate that into the solutions that we needed. And I think potential speaks a lot more loudly in this environment than the courses, the certifications. I think that's always been the way it has been. And you will get more and more women into the field looking for those skill sets than you will looking for all of the letters after people's names.
Interesting. I'm going to challenge that slightly. Mandy, you are super technical. And you're also married to a rocket scientist, equally technical in your household. So do you think that is a reason that have you progressed because of your technical skill set? Or do you think that, similar to what Amy's saying, that actually it's an application of creativity and additional skills and competencies that's allowed you to succeed along with technical competencies? I don't know how I'm framing that question very well, but you get the gist.
Yeah, I think certainly being technical helped me get into some conversations, but it also kept me out of some conversations. And having well-rounded experience, and I do that through education because I like structured education. So I have way too many degrees, but I have degrees in different subjects that allow me to get into the room and build some kind of immediate trust with folks. So I don't say specifically tech. Certainly as I got more into leadership, the technical skills weren't helpful. It was much more in listening, leadership, managing people. And to the point for hiring potential, one of the challenges I've had is I've had many women that I've worked with that have had significant potential, but either they don't see it in themselves or they just don't want to take it. They don't want to take advantage of it. They don't want to use the potential. And I had a really hard time earlier in my career when I would see someone who could just be fantastic, but they just didn't want to do it. And kind of recognizing that, yeah, they could have potential, but if they don't want it, then there's nothing I can really do to help them. And so it can help make the visibility and help the skills. But it's, again, in security, it's different roles. Some roles really need technical skills. There's a lot of roles that don't. And if you try to put a technical person in a role that doesn't require that, then they're not going to be as successful, and vice versa. And so I think...
Sorry, go on, finish this sentence first.
Oh, I would say I think that it's come up a couple of times that there's just a lot of different types of roles in security these days, and we need to, I think, be much more vocal on that, because I just think that's not well known outside of the security world.
Yeah, you said they had the skills to progress but didn't want to. Is that gender specific or gender irrelevant when you make that comment?
My experiences, I have only seen that in females.
Interesting. Why? Why do you think? You know the people.
Again, I think it's some of the just societal parental upbringings, biases that they've grown up with. I have, you mentioned I was married to a rocket scientist, yes, and I'm not the technical one in the household, but I also have twin girls, and they're fraternal twins, and they are complete opposites. And we tried really hard when they were young to introduce them both to everything, and they could decide. And I have one that loves art and is very creative and loves to draw, and I have one that doesn't want to do that and is very STEM oriented, very architecture and building, and they're in the same environment. And it's just really making those opportunities available and helping them understand that we can do all of these things, and to help them understand if you don't want to do something, is it because you really don't want to do it, or because your peers told you, oh, well, you're a girl and you should do that. And we've had some of those conversations. Just understanding, helping them understand where it's coming from, having them recognize crises when they're happening, and then they can make decisions.
I'm going to come back to you in a minute with a question that Barbara asked, but I'm going to Megan's point first. You just commented it, Megan E, saying that a huge part is networking opportunities. There's gatekeeping in cybersecurity. I like that you're in the chat, by the way. Do you mean that there's gatekeeping for you to be able to network, or do you mean generally? Is this like it's a male gate-kept networking world, and therefore it's hard to find those opportunities? Is that what you're getting at, or not? Am I down the wrong place?
In general, mostly. A lot of the people I'm mentoring, they're saying they don't even get an interview opportunity. Their resume is rejected immediately right away. Why that is, I don't know, because I've helped them write their resume, and their resume is awesome. So I'm not sure why they're not getting any of that. But I do know it's big on networking too. Anyone I'm trying to mentor, I'm trying to network, taking them to conferences, networking them with people, getting them to introduce to other people within cybersecurity, because it does go a lot with, there's a lot of females who want to be in this field, but they lack the network, the luck, and then there is current gatekeeping in a lot of companies and organizations where, buddies want to hire their buddies.
I think that's a really great point as well. Like, it's human nature.
Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
Jake. It's human nature to like want, like, if you see someone that looks like you and represents you in qualities, whether it be hobbies or whether it be they look like you, then you're more likely to affiliate with them. So I think that that's probably the biggest barrier, is because there's so many men in security that perpetuates men in security because of all of the things that we spoke about today, including the networking. So unconscious bias.
It's interesting. I mean, it permeates through more than just gender. Like I said, I've talked before, like I'm a non-drinker and non-smoker, so I go to networking events and like I don't want whiskey, like I don't want a cigar, and I find that just weird that that's even a thing. But like, so I even identify this, and I think that we make, even to me being a privileged white male, right? I find it sometimes that I'm excluded from networking events based on my own personal life choices. So yeah, I think you're right, Megan. I think we need to do more to try and make communities inclusive, less exclusive, and more available and accessible. And I think that's a community on us all to do. I actually think Simon is not sales pitching himself. I actually think he does a good job. I've been to a lot of his events where there's a whole different range of people from different backgrounds, different professions, genders, ethnicities, races, sexualities, you name it. I think that's interesting. Mandy, I'm coming back to you because purely it's a real CISO question. Barbara asked, for those entering CISO positions, can you share something you would have liked to have known before you took the position, or questions you think you should ask the employer in terms of work environment support?
I learn most about a company and kind of the reading between the lines in interviews and in conversations. Going into a CISO role, the thing that I most focus on is really trying to get an understanding of how much investment and priority that company is going to put on security. And then secondarily, if they are going to take it seriously and it's a strategic risk and they're looking to invest in it, then I focus on, well, is this the type of environment that I would want to work on? So it's looking at the interview panel, it's looking at things that the company's doing, looking at the general personalities and attitudes of folks that you have spoken with, and asking questions. I interviewed with the CIO earlier in my career, And I asked because through the series of conversations, what they were telling me the role was versus what I was hearing in the interview conversations didn't align. And I asked that question in my interview with the CIO. And I heard later that he didn't want to hire me because of that question, because he thought I would be difficult. But the technical team that I was working with really wanted me to join, and they fought really hard. And so they did make the offer, and I went to that company, but did have, some things to fight. And they told me that, and, so I went in with it and knew at least what I was going into. But that's a really good example of, if you're asking those challenging questions, sometimes that may not be perceived as positively, but it gives you great insight into the type of company you're going into.
I think that gets easier the longer you've been in your profession and the more that you've been there. Like the fact that you don't have the fear of the fact that you've already got the job that you've got and you're looking to traverse, or the fact that you already know what's gone wrong before. I think there's definitely truth in that. I will commit. Amy's in our separate private chat suggesting we should all play mini golf. So I will commit, for those who are going to Black Hat, I will find a mini golf and we'll do mini golf somewhere. Anyone who can get there. We've got to wrap up because I'm over what time I'm supposed to be. But it's ironic. So I always have a question from previous guests, and this question is probably the most perfect one I could choose. The question for each of you in a brief sentence is, if you could go back and tell your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be? It's an interesting one. Josephine, we'll start with you.
I went first last
Fine,
time.
we'll flip the wrong way around. Megan F, we'll start with you.
That everything's going to be okay. Everything's fine. Just keep going.
Okay. Mandy.
Don't be afraid to fail.
Don't be afraid. I like that one. That's like my mantra to live by. Amy.
Keep being nice.
Keep being nice. Don't be an asshole. I've said that on a lot of podcasts recently. Megan F.
That's such a profound question, Jake. I'm having like a montage of my career here. I'm like, what's my takeaway? Wow. My 18-year-old self, I would say, it's gonna be as fun and challenging as you think and hope it'll be. So just keep going.
Okay, fine. Josephine, you got the final word.
Thanks. It just gets better. Like, everyone told you that school is the best time of your life, but they're lying. Like, life just gets better.
What I love in this room is that we've all been absolute eternal optimists in our comments of what we tell our future self. So that's good. Listen, thank you all. I appreciate your time. I appreciate that we had chaos, and I hope you all got to say the things that you wanted to say and all got valuable time to speak. But I can only say thank you for the examples that you set for so many people in the industry, myself and my daughter included. So I appreciate you all, and I'm sure we'll be somewhere speaking again soon. So thank you.
Thanks for being a great ally, Jake.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.